We're going. We're good.
I'd like to call this Ledger Town Council meeting to order. Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davis,
Here.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Here.
Mrs. Evans,
Here.
Mrs. Ingles, Mr. Marshall,
Here.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Here.
Mr. Ryan,
Here.
Mr. Soms,
Here.
Mr. Washington.
Here.
8 here, 1 absent.
At this time, do any residents or property owners wish to speak? Hearing none, any committee, commission, or board reports? Oh, entertain a motion. Oh, no, comments of town councilors. Mary.
Okay, I have two things. One, LISEF, that's the Alleged Interchurch Emergency Assistance Fund. They met this morning and the mayor's executive assistant reported that there are 44 residents who are being helped with rental assistance for tenants and landlords through Unite CT. And they're being helped with utilities through TVCCA. The money comes from the federal government and is funneled through the state. I may have my numbers wrong, but the state received about $235,000. And my second item is Legend Rotary is doing Socktober. What we're doing is trying to collect socks for the homeless and give them to the Homeless Hospitality Center in New London and Malta in Groton. They have access to lots of organizations that could use this. There are containers, laundry baskets, boxes at Town Hall, Village Market, the Dollar Tree on Route 12, and the Senior Center. And we're going to be collecting socks until the end of October, and then they will be given to the respective people. That's all.
Any questions for Mary? Oh, that's a comment, so I guess we don't have questions until we get to your report. Any other counselors have comments? John?
Yeah, starting Friday, there's a new law going into effect. There's going to be a 5-cent surcharge on the nip bottles. And we commented before when we were doing the roadside pickup, how many nip bottles we found on the side of the road. It was quite a few. Now, this is not a deposit. You're not going to get your 5 cents back. It's an additional charge on nip bottles. And after 6 months, beginning in April, that money will come back to the town from which that nip bottle was purchased. And that money is to be used, can be used for roadside cleanup, street sweepers, solid waste screens for the catch basins and things like that. I don't know if it's earmarked just for that use or if it can be used for anything, but it does go into effect on Friday.
John, do the nip bottles have like a code on them so they know where they were purchased?
I have no idea. I think it's just something that the retailers will have to track
Okay,
and then be upfront with it. That's all.
so we finally found the one benefit to having 6 package stores in town.
Yes, yes. And Mayor, if you're listening, if you need a new truck, I'm your man.
All right, so just really quick, they don't track those, they track it by zip code. So the sales that happen in 06339 and 06335, every mini bottle that is associated with those 2 zip codes will be coming to us. So it'll be paid twice a year. We'll see what that brings. Last quick thing, just wanted to correct. Mary said $235,000. It's $235 million that's in the ICT fund. No problem, just correction.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Any other counselors have comments? Seeing no hands. I'll entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of September 22nd.
Second.
I make a motion.
Motion's been made by, do you know who made those, Roxanne? Are you clear?
I seconded.
It was Hillary and Hillary moved it and John seconded.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion, corrections, edits? Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. McGrattan,
Abstain?
Mr. Ryan,
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington. I think he's frozen.
Yeah, he hasn't moved in a while.
Okay.
Somebody poke him.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall.
Yes.
7 in favor, and I'll just say, wait a minute. 6 in favor, and I'll say 2 abstentions because Mike's frozen.
Okay. Check the portal for any correspondence, referrals. Now we'll move on to council subcommittee reports. Admin.
Administration Committee met earlier this evening. We have a number of appointments for the next town council meeting. And we also discussed the ordinance regulating short-term rentals. And we're having difficulty enforcing it because there's no teeth in it. So the land use attorney suggested that we marry the ordinance with the citation ordinance. So we're going to look at that. Also, we discussed cannabis that is now legal. And we're going to wait to see what planning and zoning does with it tomorrow. That's all we had.
Is it, whose decision is it? It can be the town council's decision.
To allow or not allow retail?
Yes. It can go to the taxpayers. We could send it to referendum like they did in Stonington.
Right,
At the next, well, we can't do it at this election, but the election in, or the budget
Budget in May.
referendum.
correct,
we could do
right.
it then.
Right.
So I guess you'll be working on that process.
Yes.
Okay, good. Any other questions of admin? Community relations. Whoops, Mike is not here.
I can report. We haven't met since the last town council meeting. This is Councilor Songs
I do see you have a meeting scheduled for next week.
next Wednesday, correct?
It's Wednesday, thank you. Finance Committee. I see you had a marathon session. I started reading your minutes this morning and didn't quite finish, but I do plan to go back. They're very informative for anybody that wasn't able to be at the meeting like myself. I would highly recommend, if you weren't there, to read through them.
I've got the short version tonight.
Okay,
So we had two meetings. The Finance Committee conducted a field walk on September 30th to learn about the town's emergency apparatus at both the Gales Ferry and Ledyard Center fire stations, and to further understand our upcoming equipment replacement needs, because we do have some problems with some of our older equipment. The committee also held a regular meeting on Wednesday, October 6th at 5 p.m. by video conference. Both visits at the fire stations were highly productive and informative. Counselors were thoroughly impressed and well educated during the presentation by both teams, and we realized we only scratched the surface in the interest of time. We deeply appreciated the amount of preparation and detail the firefighters invested describing the equipment used by each department, right down to the variety of couplings for hoses, emergency kits, rescue tools, demolition apparatus, and safety gear, as well as the procedures for attack, the roles played by each firefighter, and the volume and types of calls handled. Timing was also perfect because we no sooner left the last station than the units rolled out to another call. We were very pleasantly surprised to learn how many volunteers we now have in both fire departments. So volunteerism is alive and well in our community, thanks to Ledyard and Gales Ferry's fire departments. and our residents have a lot to be thankful for. Mayor, I don't know if you're planning to introduce any news about apparatus, so if you're not, I'll shed a little more.
Take it away, Bill.
The long-awaited what is it, 11?
11.
That had engine troubles is back in service. I don't know if it's actually in service. The mayor probably does, but I heard about it, and the following day I saw the Green Goblin on its way out to a call. So I think they were probably doing some testing and moving some equipment onto it. But we finally got that engine back, and it looks great. And at the regular meeting, Mayor Allen had some excellent news about pilot funding, which I'm going to leave to him to share in his report. The committee continued to discuss the ARPA funding project list and noted that Chairman Davis suggested solar charging stations at the senior center and improvements at Erickson Park and Gales Ferry to be added to the list. In addition, the mayor has added replacing playground equipment at Donahue Park and a promotional marketing video requested by the Economic Development Commission. These are not large dollar items, but good ideas. Residents have also suggested the town consider sidewalks in Gales Ferry and 5G wireless service along routes 117 and 112. We need to get some more information about that because I'm not aware that municipalities invest in wireless service, but we'll find out more. The committee will continue to discuss and prioritize the projects on the list for the mayor at its next meeting, which is next week, as well as how the public will be able to provide input. And we'll make suggestions about that and bring those to the council, which we've sort of been discussing right along. And everything else is on the agenda for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions for Bill? Okay, land use.
Land use is not met. I have no report.
Other liaison reports. John.
The PMBC had a special meeting last night. Wayne Dowson had a third party fix a leak on one of the rooftop units. Water was getting in and getting into a spot where there shouldn't be water, and that was getting into the building. And the original contractor agreed that it was a really good fix, and he was fine with it. It's not going to affect the warranty at all. So they did the same repair on 3 more units to prevent the same problem. There was an issue with mold in the building, and they figured it was both the water coming into the rooftop units and the fact that they're bringing in so much outside air that was humid, and there's no dehumidification going on inside the building. We have air conditioning, which takes out some, but you really need a dehumidification unit itself. It was up as high as 80% at some points, humidity inside the building. And they believe that's what's causing the majority of the mold. Some of the units can be reprogrammed. There's already a heating coil inside the unit. It just involves reprogramming it for that heating coil to come on to dry out the air as it comes into the building. So that's a quick and easy fix, and they're looking into doing that. We're still waiting on some of the middle school. I was on middle school, I'm sorry. And we're still waiting for some of the plants to be replaced. It's almost the end of the season, so I really need to get going on that. On Gallup Hill, we're still waiting for some replacement doors and hardware. We're shooting for October 22nd, which is a professional development day for the work to be done. Again, it all depends if we get the material in-house. And there's more. Oh, a third party. Again, Wayne brought in a third party to look at the heating and cooling system at a separate issue. And this contractor discovered that there is a 3-way valve that was put in the wrong spot. Instead of here, it should have been over there. Now, we contacted the engineer to see if that was done on purpose or it just was installed in the wrong spot. Sometimes things come up and you have to move something. So we have to find all that out still. It may or may not be an issue. The Gales Ferry building management system contract has been awarded. I don't have the name of that yet or a time frame, but that's going forward. And over the summer, Wayne Donaldson had some work done on the high school in Gales Ferry, replacing flooring, some painting, some bathroom remodels, some new bulletin boards and things like that. And all his projects came in on time and under budget, some by multiple thousands of dollars under budget. And that is my report.
Any questions for Mr. Marshall? Any other liaison reports? Mr. Psalms.
WPCA met on September 14th and again on the 28th. At the September 14th meeting, they voted to award the Gallup Hill tank demolition contract to Stanford Wrecking Company, who had the lowest bid, and work, I hope, is underway by now. Then they held their regular meeting at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, September 28th. And DPH has initiated, this is interesting, Department of Public Health has initiated contracts to develop a GIS or geographical information system layer that identifies the locations of parcels in every town supplied by a private well, presumably to understand aquifers across the state and to predict where future public water supplies will be needed. That would have been helpful in Gales Ferry years ago when saltwater started to infiltrate wells along the Thames River. On another note, the Fox Run meter has been replaced, which will enable WPCA to fill the complex or to build the complex more accurately for water usage. And we had a long discussion with Weston and Sampson, who presented a follow-up report on Ledyard Center sewer study and discussed how plant capacity might be allocated in Ledyard Center between competing demands. And after much discussion, the decision was to present the Planning and Zoning Commission with rules of thumb for gallons per day generated by each type of development unit, retail, residential, commercial, et cetera, with recommendations for how capacity might be allocated based on total available capacity. The firm will provide WPCA with final study document to be shared with planning and zoning and the town. And the reason we had that discussion is if Ledyard Center were completely built out with residential and commercial development as shown in all the plans we've looked at for the last 40, 50 years, there is not enough sewer capacity at the plant and won't be. So we have to make sure that one single entity doesn't suck up all of the capacity, which the town has a right to do because the taxpayers are paying for this investment in the plant. Therefore, the town or the municipality has a right to allocate. There's no further news on the interconnection with NPU over Pocatonic Cove. And the WPCA continues to wait for an inspection report for the Ledyard Center tank, now due to a climbing belt that didn't pass inspection. So the WPCA hasn't forgotten this, Mayor, but we are still trying to get that tank inspected and get somebody up there. Past due receivables were $10,560, which is normal. And that's my report.
Thanks, Bill. Any questions for Bill? Any other liaison reports? Hearing none. Mayor.
All right, thank you, everybody. Just to follow on with Councilor Psalm's comments, R11, the engine that's been out of service for as much as 2 years, has some minor air conditioning issues, which are not prohibiting it from going out on calls, which is good. There's one other minor issue between a piece of equipment and a gauge that's not responding properly, but again, it's not affecting the truck. So they're looking at coming actually to the station to do the repair there instead of putting it out of service again. On the demolition of the water tank on Gallup Hill Road, I only just received the finalized contract from Stanford Wrecking last week. So that was signed and sent off. So they have the final, but it's they probably have not started based on, I think it was last Wednesday that was signed. On the legislate front, they've got a more recent report. We have 7 hospitalizations at L&M. 2 of them are in ICU. Overall, legislate cases have declined pretty dramatically. We're down to 131 as of last October in terms of new cases per day. So a pretty manageable number. Hopefully that will continue. On vaccinations, Ledyard is at 64.14% fully vaccinated, which is the 4th highest in southeastern Connecticut after East Lyme, Waterford, and Stonington. I'm not going to bore you with the percentages of people. I've been updating that very frequently, but the low range is 60% for the 12 to 17-year-olds. The high range is 100% vaccinated for the 65 plus. I attended a CCM legislative priority meeting on October 7th. This is where they laid out their goals for the upcoming state legislative session. I'm just going to touch on 4 of them for you that were their top priorities. One of them is modifications to Public Act 20-1, that is the Police Accountability Bill. They are seeking to have post, not CALIA certification. The CALIA certification is much more expensive, so they're looking to have post be the guidepost for that. They're also looking for clarification on, it just states that all vehicles must have cameras. So some police departments have, let's say, a Humvee, some others have ATVs, some others have boats. So they're looking for clarification on that. They're also looking for financial support for cameras and storage for municipalities. There is a program out there, but it's 50% reimbursement for the cameras only. Their second item was a change. They're seeking a change to the assessment appeals process. They want a certified appraisal from a Connecticut licensed appraiser to be submitted to the court within 90 days of somebody filing a legal appeal to their assessment, to try to keep things moving along and make sure that they have a certified appraisal as opposed to, let's say, information from the internet or Zillow or whatever the case may be. They're looking to change auto dealer and repairers. Currently, the Zoning Board of Appeals has to sign off on all auto dealers and repairers locations. They're looking to change that to the zoning enforcement official sign off instead of having to go to ZBA. And then the last item is sober homes. They are virtually unregulated, which the CCM feels is not good for the occupants, the owners, or the towns. So they want to see some level of regulation for sober homes, which I think is also a good idea. We hired another new police officer. Kira Tashira is our newest officer. She started about 2 weeks ago. She is the third female police officer in Ledyard. So we have a full complement of officers at 23 right now. We are expecting 1 or 2 retirements in the next 8 months. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, but that's where we are right now. I'm sorry to report that we had a fatal car accident early this morning, as many of you know. A young gentleman from Gales Ferry, Adam Nowen, passed away as a result of a pretty horrific car crash. The first responders have a meeting tonight to help with assisting with them psychologically from the impacts of that accident. And they are all being offered employee assistance programs as well to help people with psychological needs as a result of attending that. And I know they all did their best. And I talked to the chiefs today about it, and they put a lot into it, and it's unfortunate. Also wanted to offer a huge thank you to Senator Austin. She and I had a nice conversation about correcting the inequity of pilot. It was something that's been long-standing. I think Mayor Finkelstein addressed it during his tenure. It was probably addressed before that too. So the change, which Senator Austin tells me is in perpetuity, means an added $630,037 annually for Ledyard. So we were receiving about 45% pilot payment from the state for non-taxable of government-owned property in town, and it is now actually 100% of the assessed value. So that first year of money, because it wasn't part of the budget process, is going into our reserve fund. It's not the general fund, it's the reserve fund, which we are working hard to rebuild. That's a positive. And then next year, we're going to factor that into our budgeting process. So we should be seeing another $630,000 for when we start the next fiscal year budget process. And that's something that we will all be discussing. And then the last thing was we submitted for FEMA reimbursement for damage as a result of Tropical Storm Isaias. After a long haul and a tremendous amount of work by Jim Mann, the dollars arrived yesterday. We received not the exact amount, but $28,000, just over $28,000. So a lot of effort had to go into that. They required GPS coordinates of every location of every tree that was down in the road. So a lot of footwork had to go into reconstructing exactly where we were to cover storm clearing of roads and whatnot. But it was nice to see that we did receive those funds. And that is my report for tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Does anybody have any questions for the mayor? Bill?
Mayor, thank you for that report, and we're very grateful to Senator Austin. That was a long time coming, so we appreciate that. Question for you about the mask mandate in town buildings. I know that we had one, and the signs on the buildings now say that if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. Could you clarify what the policy and what the history is, please?
Yeah, that is correct. So we did reinstitute a mask mandate briefly. In all fairness, when I was out of town, that occurred. I wasn't in favor of it completely. So when we came back, we looked at it. We looked at the data that supports or does not support the mask mandate. We looked at the protective measures that we have in place in our municipal buildings. And we made the decision to say, if you are vaccinated, if you are fully vaccinated, you do not have to wear a mask. That doesn't mean you don't wear a mask. It means if you choose to wear a mask and you're fully vaccinated, by all means wear a mask. And if you are unvaccinated, you must wear a mask. And that's still where we stand. We are one of 7 towns in the Legislate Health District that are operating in that fashion right now. So Groton, New London, and Norwich are mask mandated. We are not.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to relate a personal experience. I traveled this summer with a person for several days, entering stores that had a sign that says, if you're vaccinated, no mask, but if you're not, please respect our health and wear a mask. And as it turns out, I'm pretty upset about this. I was wearing a mask, even though I'm fully vaccinated. I still wear one, even though I got my booster. But my friend is not vaccinated and was not wearing a mask. There's no way to know. And that really upset me. And our friendship is at risk. So that's just my concern with the current policy.
Yeah, and I think part of that comes back to, again, it's choices that people are making. So choices that you're making to be vaccinated. I'm fully vaccinated. I've traveled. I've done all of that. You know, the likelihood of getting COVID is less than 0.5% for fully vaccinated individuals, according to the Connecticut Department of Public Health. So I'm comfortable with that. At the same time, people that don't want to be vaccinated, but then don't want to wear masks, in reality, they're risking their own health and potentially future well-being.
Any other questions for the mayor? Seeing none, we have no old business. Would anybody like to amend the agenda under new business? Seeing none, Bill, Finance.
I muted myself for the first time. This is Councilor Solms for Finance. I move to authorize over expenditure of Public Works account number 1014013-51130, regular overtime, up to $29,500 total due to much higher than normal overtime demands to date.
Second.
Thank you. So this is also related to storms we've had through the summertime. Every time we've had a storm, people in the Public Works Department have to come in, clean up trees, tree limbs, and related damage from the storm. And on top of that, we have to bring our superintendent in because he has to be on the job if we have employees on the job. So this summer's weather is the result or the cause of this overtime request.
Mayor,
If I could add just one thing, the tropical storm Isaias funds that came in happened to be pretty darn close to this number, 28,000 and change. It came in from a storm that was from a prior fiscal year. So right now, the $28,000 would just go into the general fund. But I think we could probably use those funds very reasonably to offset this. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Good point. Good timing. Thank you.
Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Song,
Yes.
Mr. Washington, I think he is on the phone.
I got back on.
Yes,
I'm on my phone. I don't
okay,
have any cellular shot. Something happened. So yes.
okay. Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans,
Yeah.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
This is Counselor Solms again. I move to approve a supplemental appropriation to account number 101-401-07-56306 for the removal of hazard town trees in the amount of $25,000 to be drawn from general fund balance.
Second, Counselor Ryan.
So this generated some interesting discussion. It's not the first time we've had to do this. A couple of years ago, we had dead white oak trees, mostly white oaks, as the result of the gypsy moth infestation that we had for 3 years in a row due to dry spring. Those trees died. They had to be removed. We've got a lot of cooperation from Eversource in removing trees that are over their power lines, but the rest are the town's responsibility. So as I say, 2 years ago, we increased this fund by 25,000. We need to do it again because more trees have died. They don't all die at once. And in addition, we're now seeing the ash trees die from the emerald ash borer. And the reason the discussion went on for a while was interesting, that the Public Works Director mentioned that he had a $4,000 budget normally for removal of town trees, which is roughly equivalent to 2 to 3 trees per year, which is certainly not enough. And Councilor Ryan asked about that. Turns out we use a lot more money from Town Aid Road, which we get from the state. So even the Town Aid Road supplement was not enough to cover the amount of trees that we have to remove. And this is going to go on for a while, probably for another at least 2 years. So nothing we have much control over, but it's a big problem around town and for all towns.
Thank you. Any other questions? Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Song,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. That was our very short agenda. But I know, looking at finance's budget, that our agendas are going to start getting longer and more interesting as we get into the budget season. Bill, do you know, somebody asked me, actually Chairman Favre asked me, do you know when we put out the, Roxanne may know this, when do we put out the budget directive?
November,
Bill, do you
December. Yeah, November, December.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I told them it was a little early. Okay, good. Thank you. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Dombrowski to make a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned without exception. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Aye, everybody.
Have a good night.
Night, everybody. See you later.